Howdy everybody, Chris here. We're back in the garage today. We're continuing with this overall paint job on my wife's vehicle. As you can see, the paint is delaminating from the sun. We've got several peeling areas on this vehicle. So we're gonna paint this entire vehicle, change the color, do the door jambs, and we're continuing on this today. So because this vehicle was peeling, I decided to go ahead, repair this dent, and paint this entire vehicle. She wanted the color changed, so we're gonna go ahead and do that for her. But today I wanna talk to you about something a little bit different. We're gonna paint this roof today. We're going to finish painting the roof. I'm going to walk you through this step by step. We'll go through all the gun settings, all the techniques that you need to know to apply a beautiful looking finish on your vehicle or restoration project. One thing that's always a concern when you're painting in an open garage at home is getting a clean paint job. And I have a process that I go through in order to get the best results possible with limited dust or dirt in your paint job, especially on these flat upper surfaces. So I'll cover all those tips and tricks to really help you out with a clean paint job. Last week we went ahead and pulled out this dent with the G90E and repaired this door. If you want to check out this full video, click on the card up above. So last week we went ahead and sanded all the peeling areas out of the paint on this vehicle. Now I did mention that because of the situation on this vehicle, we're not going to strip this paint off. If your clear coat is peeling like this, it really needs to be completely removed in order to do it properly, because once that clear coat starts to delaminate, if you don't remove it, there is a possibility that that could continue to delaminate and remove your new paint with it. So it's a good idea to strip it completely. You don't necessarily have to go down to bare metal, but you need to strip it completely if it's peeling like this. Now I'm going to take the chance and we're going to repair the peeling areas and we're going to refinish over the original clear coat. So we sanded it with 320 grit sandpaper, sanded out all those peeling areas. We then applied 2 coats of 2K urethane primer, and then we sanded that primer briefly with 320 and then went over it with 600 to prepare it for paint. Now if you're doing this at home where you're correcting some peeling paint and adding some primer, you definitely want to block sand that primer out. Use a hard block that's going to cover the majority of the surface area with some 320 grit sandpaper. This is going to take out any little waves in that repair area. We went a little quickly, we didn't block it out quite properly, and we've got a few little waves in that roof, which is really okay with me. It's not a big problem, but I could see it in my finished repair. So I just want to let you know, make sure you block out those repair areas. Before we get to the gun settings, let's go over some of the things that I do to get a clean paint job. I think we do a pretty good job of getting clean paint jobs for the environment we're spraying in. And this can be one of the most challenging things to do if you're spraying at home out of your own garage. First of all, it's very important to clean the entire vehicle before you start sanding, masking, doing any of that. I go over it with a pressure washer if at all possible. We pressure wash this complete vehicle. We pressure washed all the door gaps under the hood. After we dismantled it, we pressure washed this entire vehicle. And then we went around with isopropyl alcohol in any areas that might be holding dirt. It's important to remove as much trim as possible because under that trim it holds dirt and trash. The other thing we like to do, if at all possible, is we let it sit overnight. So after we mask it off, we degrease it, we wipe it with isopropyl alcohol, we let it sit overnight, and I paint it the next day. And that allows everything that's in the air of the shop to settle. And then in the morning, I'll come in, wipe it all down, wash it one more time with isopropyl alcohol, and then we're ready to spray. We can't always do it that way because of time constraints, but if at all possible, I would definitely recommend this step. Now, there's one more tip I want to give you that's crucial to getting a clean paint job if you're painting at home. And I do this after the first coat of paint, so we'll talk about that in a minute. But let's talk about the gun setup on this Inokraft Drizzle D1. I like to use a low volume, low pressure paint gun when I'm spraying my base because the transfer efficiency is amazing. It uses less air, produces less overspray, and that's going to save you in materials because you're getting less paint in the air. So I set this gun up at around 15 to 18 PSI for base coat. We open up our fluid volume about 3 turns out from closed. So we close it all the way, open it up 3 turns. I like to keep my fan pattern nearly wide open, so I'll open it up all the way and I'll dial it back about 1/4 of a turn. After the first coat of base, you want to let that base flash off or dry for about 10 to 15 minutes before you apply a second coat. Now I let this dry for about 30 minutes because I wanted to go over it, look for any imperfections, any dust, and sand those out with 600 grit sandpaper. This is an important step if you're working at home out of your garage and you want to eliminate as much dust as possible, especially on upper surfaces like hoods and roofs. So what I'll do is I'll go over this and I'll feel over this As long as it's dried to the touch, you can nib out any dust particles that have landed in the paint. I felt over it, checked for any dust particles, and I sanded those out, and then I just sanded this entire roof lightly with 600 grit sandpaper. And then you want to wipe it down with a tack cloth that'll remove any dust particles. I think this one step is going to help you clean up your paint jobs quite a bit. Sanding base coat can sometimes gum up your sandpaper and leave particles of paint on your paper, and sometimes that can stick to your base coat. So make sure that surface is clean. Just be aware of that when you're moving through this process. Another thing you might want to consider is wearing a paint suit before you start spraying. Now, I don't tend to wear a paint suit very often. What I like to do is blow myself off outside before I start painting. But a lot of trash that ends up in your paint job comes off the painter. Now that we got this roof all sanded and all those imperfections removed, I'm just using a tack cloth to wipe this down to make sure there's no dust left on it before we spray our second coat. And a tack cloth is just a sticky cloth that picks up any particles of dust. And I'll leave links to all the tools and products that I use in the description. So let's talk a little bit about base coat application. Now, in these cold winter months, I like to put a dust coating on for my first coat of base. I put it on a little bit lighter because I want to introduce that paint to the surface. If you put it on too heavy on your first coat in cold temperatures, you might get a little bit of fisheye. And on a base coat, it's really not the end of the world. A lot of times you can put your second coat on and cover up those minor fisheyes and they will never show up. But if they're too deep, then they may have to be sanded out. In these colder temperatures, just something to keep in mind. Put a dust coat on, introduce that paint to the surface. Now you got a good base to hit it a little bit heavier on your second and third coat. I had it warm in the garage here, so we put it on medium to wet on the first coat and the second coat. When you're applying your base coat, you want to have a smooth, uniform finish. The way you do that is have a consistent overlap. You want to overlap your passes about 80%. So you make a pass and then you overlap that previous pass about 80%. This is especially important when you're spraying metallic finishes. Now, this is a solid color. I don't want to say it's not important, but it's more important when you're spraying those fine metallics. You also want to make sure you have a consistent distance from the panel so you get that nice uniform metallic finish. 2024 is over. We're headed into 2025, and I've got a lot of great ideas for this upcoming year. And I appreciate you guys being with me throughout 2024 and all the support and comments that you've shared. I get hundreds, if not thousands, of comments saying how helpful these videos are, and I appreciate that tremendously. And if you're not a part of the channel, definitely consider subscribing to the channel. It helps this channel grow, helps me to reach more people. I appreciate all your support, and let's keep it going for 2025. So on this third coat, I'm just kind of doing a drop coat, and basically what that is, I'm just trying to get a uniform finish. Some of these pastel paints, they can tend to look a little blotchy, like have dark areas if you're not atomizing it correctly and getting a nice uniform finish. So I move back from the panel just a little bit and dust it on. That's going to help it get that nice uniform color that we're looking for. Okay, now it's time for clear coat, and typically on an overall paint job, I would use the Finish One FC720, but I decided to try out this FC740. I've heard really good things about it. Supposedly it has a deeper finish, and it has a higher solids content, which is going to make it last longer and be more durable. So I had my bullet heater running here for a while just to help this to dry a little bit quicker. So I shut that off. I don't want to clear coat while that's on. So what I like to do is I heat up the shop as much as possible before I start clearing. I shut that off and then I'll do my clear coat. And I know this looks wet, but it's really not. It's just a nice smooth finish. So I'm going to go over and tack this off and make sure we removed any dust particles that are landed on the surface. We're going to use our Sagola clear coat gun, the 4600 clear gun, to spray this roof. I'm choosing this gun because it sprays very quickly and it's just so easy to use. It puts down a beautiful looking finish and it really atomizes that clear well and helps it to lay down nice and smooth. Because I'm spraying a flat surface, I'm going to open this gun up all the way so the fluid volume is opened up all the way. So I'm putting as much clear as possible on this. And if you want to try spraying with the gun wide open, do it on a flat surface. Do it on an upper surface like a hood or a roof. Now, as far as the air pressure on this gun, I run this gun at about 23 PSI. I'm not exactly positive what I painted this with, but typically it's between 23 and 25 PSI. We have the fan pattern nearly wide open. I'll open it up all the way and then I'll usually turn it back like a quarter turn. The way I'm spraying this is I'm doing the left front side, and then I'll walk around to the other side and do the front right half. After I do the front part of the right side, I'll move my ladder. I'll clear from as far as I can reach, and then I'll go around to the other side and finish up that side, and then we'll do the back there. I want to reduce the opportunity for any dry spray. You want to follow that wet edge so you get a nice smooth finish with no dry areas. This is just the way I decided to do it. There's many different ways you can spray a roof. If you spray it differently, let me know down in the comments how you like to spray roofs. As you get more and more experience spraying clear coat, you're going to develop your own spraying techniques. But here are some good guidelines. Similar to base coat, you want to overlap your passes 80%. This is more important than you might think, because in order to get a uniform texture or peel, you need to keep your overlap consistent about 80%, and it does make a big difference. I know if I get in a hurry and I don't overlap my passes consistently, my finish suffers and I get inconsistent peel. The other thing you want to consider is your speed and your distance. Keep it consistent, and remember that your speed and your distance affect how that clear coat lays on the panel. If you're spraying too close, you're getting too much material on the panel. You might get runs or kind of like a wavy effect from too much clear. If you spray too far away, you're going to get dry spray, and it's not going to be that glossy finish that you're looking for. There's a balance there, and as you get more experience, you're going to find that balance and find really what works well for you and how you like to spray and what gives you the best results. Listen, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer them. I think this 740 clear coat is the new clear coat I'm going to use on all my overall paint jobs. It just performed beautifully, and it really has a deep looking finish. And what's great about using this on my wife's vehicle is I'm going to see how durable this is and how well this holds up. I will definitely keep you posted, but I really like the deep finish of this clear coat. I put 2 coats of clear on this roof. I applied the first coat the way I want it to look, and then you want to wait 15 to 20 minutes depending on the temperature and let that flash off, let some of those gases flash out of that clear, and then apply your second coat, because you don't want to trap those chemicals in that first coat. You want to give it time to flash off. Otherwise, you can get solvent pops, and if you wait too long, you can even get dieback, which is a dullness in the gloss. And that's always really hit or miss. A lot of times you're going to get some dieback. Different clears shrink back a little bit more, and you lose a little gloss the next day. And what I was really impressed with about this 740 is I didn't notice any dieback at all. And I don't know if that was just the way I sprayed it and my timing was just perfect, or if it's the clear itself. But this clear coat held its gloss very well the next day, and I'll show you that here in a minute. And this Sagola gun performed beautifully. This is a top of the line gun. If you're a DIYer, you don't necessarily need this gun. You can put a beautiful looking finish on with a budget gun, but it just makes it so much easier with this gun. It's so easy to use, and it lays it down perfectly. As long as you're using the correct techniques, it's fantastic. I have to say, at first I was unsure about this color, but after getting this roof sprayed, this is going to look fantastic on this vehicle. I'm excited to get it done. Let me know your thoughts in the comments about this color. And as you can see, the finish is beautiful. We eliminated a lot of dust. We still have some particles of dust, and those can be easily wet sanded and buffed out. And this clear coat has no noticeable dieback. This is the next day, and it looks like I just sprayed it. Hey, I appreciate each and every one of you watching. Subscribe for more, and we'll see you next time on Garage Noise. To build your skill, click on this video now.